In this video, we are going to look at solving systems using matrices to make it a little bit easier to solve it so you don't have to do as much substitution, elimination, and things like that as you were doing earlier when you first started this topic. So for instance, look at example number 1. So our step 1 for this problem, and this is how it would be given, is we're going to write your problem and fill in 0 for missing terms. And then we're going to write it in the matrix. And when I say matrix, I mean with these brackets right here that you see. And so let me show you how to do that real quick. First of all, notice this has 3 variables in it. It has x, y, and z. So on this one, we're missing a value for z. We don't have any value there. So what I'm going to tell you is in 0z, just so that you can have a placeholder, because we're going to need to put the coefficient of each one of these right here inside of this matrix. So now that I've added in a 0 as a placeholder, I'm going to start writing these in. Now I do want you to notice that in this particular matrix we have 4 columns and we have 3 rows. Your rows are these that go side to side. So there's row 1, row 2, and row 3. And then the columns are going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now the reason that's important is because notice right here we have three terms on the left side of the equal sign and 1 term on the right. So we need 4 columns to make sure that we can put all those terms in the matrix. Now I'm going to circle them as I write them so you can see how I line them up. So the coefficient of x is 3. That's going to go in my first column in my first row. Next I have negative 4 for the coefficient of y. So I'm going to put negative 4 right there. And then I have negative 2 for z. So I'm going to put that in my third column, negative 2. And then for my fourth column, I have this positive 7, a constant value of 7. So I'm just going to continue this process for each one of these, and that's the reason I put a placeholder, is so that you don't forget to put in a 0. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to circle this one, that's 9. So I'll put that in my second row in that first column. And then I'm going to do the next one. I have positive 3. And the next is just going to be 0 for z, so I'll put a 0 there. And then my last value is 3. And now I'm going to do this for the final equation in my system. So I have 2 for the first one, that's my x's. I have 4 for the second column, that's my y values. And I have negative 1. Remember that anytime if there's not a number in front of a variable, there's always an invisible 1. So I have negative 1 for my z's. And then for my answer we have 2. So just keep in mind, I'm just going to write on top of it, this represents the coefficient for the x. This represents the coefficients that are for the y in those 3 equations. And this column right here is going to represent the coefficient of the z. Now once we have this in, we need to move to the next step, because we've got to enter this into our calculator, and it'll do all the work for us once we've done that. Now from this point, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to follow step 2. So notice step 2 says select the second and x to the negative 1 power button. So I'm going to hit second, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit this x to the negative 1 power. And notice above it in blue it says matrix. And it's going to go ahead and pull up the matrix. Now once I've done that, I am going to use this side arrow. That's what this little symbol represents. I'm going to use that button to go to edit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click it and go to edit. Once I'm at edit, I'm going to hit enter, because notice it says click enter, and then it says change matrices, rows, and columns. Now on this one, I'm going to pull it back down just a little bit. Notice we had 3 rows and 4 columns. But notice inside my calculator, it shows that it only has 1 and 2. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that number. So all you got to do is you enter it. You can click left and right to go to the first number or the second. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 3 so that I have 3 rows. And then I'm going to click to the right, and I'm going to change this second one, right? It says 2, but I'm going to change that to 4 because we actually have 4 columns. And when I click back, right, you're going to notice you can see that they've all come up now. So now this is where we're going to put in these values. Now I'm going to type them in one at a time. I'm going to do this first row on top. I'm going to start with typing in positive 3. And then I'm going to put in negative 2. And then I'm going to put in positive 7, and then I'm going to put in 9, and 3, and 0, and 3. Then on the very bottom, I'm going to go ahead and put in 2, 4, and -1, and 2. Now once I've done this, I have them all in. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to step 3. So I'm going to move this up a little bit, and notice step 3, it tells me to go ahead and hit second plus mode. And what this does is it tells it that you're going to quit. Now once you quit, the next thing you're going to do is you're then going to select second and then the x to the -1 power again, right? Our second matrix. Now once you're here, you want to go ahead and you want to go to math. So to get to the math menu, I'm just going to click to the right one time. Notice math pulls up. And then from there, I'm going to select RREF. Now to find that option, you got to click down. It's down at the very bottom. And notice this one says RREF. So I'm going to hit enter, and it pulls it up inside of my regular calculator on function screen. So after that, notice here it says now select second and the matrix key, or the x to the -1 again. So I'm going to hit second and x to the power of -1. And notice it pulls up an option here of all these different matrices that we could have had filled out. So these different matrices. Now I'm going to pick A because A is the one that we put the data in, and we changed it to 3 rows and 4 columns. So I'm going to hit enter. Notice it comes down. Now if we were to continue to follow the instructions that we have here, next, right, it says now select A. We just did that. And then notice the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to select enter. So I'm going to go ahead and move this back up. I'll close my parenthesis and hit enter. And these are the answers, the columns that you see on the right hand side. So I'm going to write my answers down here. Now I am going to round them because I don't want to have that big large decimal strand. And so round them to however your teacher is asking you to do it. But for these purposes, to show you how to do it, I'm just going to round it to the hundredths place. So the second decimal place to the right. So my first value, so notice for the first one I have 0.428. So that 8 tells me to change that 2 to a 3. So it's 0.43. Next I have -0.285. That 5 tells me to turn an 8 to a 9. So I'm going to put -0.29. And then my last one is -2.285. So it'll be -2.29. So -2.29. Now these are in order, just as we'd put these in. For instance, if I pull this back down, notice we put in our x value first, our y value next, and the z value next, right? So that was the first column, second column, third column. So I'll move this back up. This is my first answer, right, represented for column x. So that's going to be x's answer, 0.43. Just like that second column was our y values, well, this is going to be our y value answer, -0.29. And then we have -2.29 for z. And these are your answers. Now, typically you would give your answer, just state it just like this as a data set, right? And you just put it in parentheses and have your x, y, and z value. But if they told you to write it out and enter them one at a time somewhere, or you're doing it electronically, you could enter it, just like that. But that's how you do it. Now I'm going to do 2 more examples. If you feel like you need another example, go ahead and watch my example number 2 and example number 3 problem, because example number 3 is also going to show you what it looks like when you get a situation that there's no solution.